The Top Knot Creative Show, the Top Knot Creative Show. Seeking super smart, super talented superheroes. How to be wow over the world and all around. The Top Knot Creative Show, the Top Knot Creative Show.
Hello everyone, this is Shantae Schrader and welcome to the show where we seek out the super smart, super talented, and basically the superheroes who are taking over the world and making it super wow. Today we are talking with Frances Corkill, owner of 2 Photography. She is an international wedding and engagement photographer when she's not working as a bank manager at a local bank located in Boise, Idaho, and she was featured on the Today Show along with some of her work, and we are so excited to learn more about her and about her feature on the Today Show. Thank you so much for joining us today, Frances. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Well, let's jump right in. Why don't you tell us your start, how you got your start in photography, and kind of what led to starting your own business as 2 Photography?
I actually got started in photography just based on hobby, more so. I was really interested in people and relationships, and it started out more as landscape photography, and that wasn't as interesting to me. And so I focused more on learning the camera and the tools, and I'm completely self-taught. And I focused more on wedding photography as I've grown, just because of the people, what surrounds the day of a wedding. It's very emotional, and I love the relationships that I've been able to build and connecting, to have friends along the way from those clients, as well as just sharing in something so incredibly strong as the bond between a bride and groom.
Now, tell us when 2 Photography became a business.
2 Photography actually started in June of 2009 and has just grown from there. And it became 2 Photography. It's actually a play on words. On my website, everything is based on it takes 2 people to have a baby, to get married. And so the company revolves around solely 2 people a majority of the time, and just telling that story of those clients that come to me.
And maybe tell us about your unique take on photography, your distinctive style.
My style seems to change, but I've noticed lately in the last couple of years, I focused mostly on a candid style, the photojournalistic style between couples. Those have been the memories that people have wanted, and I focus mainly on that because people want those images that show this is what we really are like. The posed, stand side by side, those are great to have just for some traditional poses. But when it comes down to lifestyle, the client, the couple, they really want those. That's what happened in the moment. And they love looking back at them because they can remember that distinct time of what happened when that photo was taken.
So you have to have quite an eye for capturing those moments. What goes on with you, during that day?
I do. I feel, especially during weddings, I feel an emotional tie to them. And I will admit I am a baller when it comes to the first dance and the father-daughter dance, because that is 2 of the biggest moments at a wedding, is just that intimate moment. Everybody's watching, and there's always tears and just strong emotion bonds between everybody. So for me, it's really important capturing those, and when they see those photos, they just know that was one of the best moments of my wedding.
So how do you balance, the subtlety of that moment and capturing it, but then I imagine you also have to be very bold and, kind of direct people when it comes, or get right in there, and take those photos.
And one of the biggest things that I found is actually a wedding that I had back in October. I actually was welcomed in like I was part of the family, and that was probably one of my all-time favorite weddings because it made my job so easy. Everybody was like, get the photographer in there, let's do this, let's have a good time. And everybody, it didn't bother them that I was there. And between, the reception and doing everything prior, when it comes down to family shots, it's just being, really casual and talking to the guests and getting to know them, because then they feel that sense of the person that I'm the one taking the lead of making sure, kind of directing everybody. And they're like, hey, let's get this done. No big deal. And so just between that, everybody kind of has a sense of respect for what I'm doing there and making sure that my bride and groom get the best shots that they can get.
Love it. Now, you were recently featured on the Today Show in February, actually. So tell us about that.
It was super exciting. It came really quick. I had submitted a story back in January just about balancing work at full-time at a bank, managing and owning 2 photography, as well as starting another company. And I didn't think the story would go anywhere. A couple weeks later, I got a phone call from a producer just asking me to elaborate questions about, how I balance it. And then it was still kind of up in the air, and a couple weeks later, I got another call from a different producer kind of clarifying some things, and then she said, well, we'll let you know, and within 24 hours, I got a call asking to go to New York. And I jumped for joy, was super stoked. On Valentine's Day, I flew to New York, was in New York for 24 hours, shot the show, aired the show, kind of hung around Rockefeller Center, and it was great, but it was super, super quick and fast trip. So
I imagine. And what's happened since then for you?
I've actually launched my second company that I was starting at the time, and just have been focusing a lot more solely around my goals of what I want to do to grow both businesses. And it's helped a little bit. I wouldn't say that the Today Show skyrocketed my business, but just the awareness that I am out there and loving what I do and looking forward to continuing on.
I can't imagine it hurts to be able to say, oh, I was on the Today Show. No big deal.
It's kind of funny because I don't talk about it a lot, really. That's kind of why I put the link on my site, because I almost kind of I feel like I get embarrassed when people bring it up. I've had people say, weren't you on the Today Show? I'm like, yeah, I was.
You weren't? I mean, that's what we do. I love it. I love it. Now, let's talk about a little bit with the photography, working with clients. What are some of the things that they should look for when they're looking to hire you or any photographer?
When looking to book a wedding photographer, definitely everybody looks at price. I have a few different things. The first thing is you should look at their work. If it meshes with the style you're going for. If you find a photographer that has incredible vintage work, but your wedding is going to be modern, you want to look, can they provide that, or are they going to pretty much stay vintage? If it doesn't match your style, you definitely want to look at somebody else. Besides the work, you definitely want to look at their personality. They may have the perfect style you want. It will go with your wedding. But if your personalities don't match, that's something to consider as well, because you don't want to have something happen on the wedding day where there's a conflict and then get your pictures afterward and they weren't what you wanted. Mm-hmm. The other thing to look at is price. A lot of people go with, hey, this photographer can shoot my whole wedding for $1,000. This photographer's $3,000. The saying, you get what you pay for, is definitely true. You always want to ask super important questions as to how long have you been doing it? Why are you this price versus this person who's this price? Definitely do some comparison. But your budget as a bride, you really want to take into consideration that photography should fall into the top 3 big budget items that you'd spend on your wedding. Because photography, you can't redo it, and it's super important it turns out how you want it. Mm-hmm. And then also, a lot of people don't consider this, but follow-up. If you shoot a photographer an email, or any vendor for that matter, and they don't respond to you within 24 hours, how is it going to be, after your wedding getting your photos? Are you going to be waiting for months? Will you get them back within a week? Just looking at how they follow up. Will they text you? Will they call you? Will they email you? But making sure there's that open line of communication from the booking process all the way through to the finish of the wedding.
Oh, yeah. That would be super important because, I would be very eager following a major event to get my photos so I could see them.
Especially when you spent money on it. The other thing, too, that I actually offer up to people who would like to book me is to talk to my past clients and get what their experience was. Nothing better than getting real-life experience from somebody who's actually used you as a vendor.
Super, super smart. Now, one of the questions we were discussing was, should brides opt out of engagement sessions to save money?
I say absolutely not, never. The reason I love engagement sessions, it is that one time you get to be with a bride and groom when nobody else is around. You get to know them a little bit more on a personal level. They also get to see how you work, to get to know you, your personality, and get a little bit more familiar with your style. Sure, they see a portfolio when they first look at booking you, but they get to know you, your style, and they get to interact with you and build that comfort level and trust even further. So when the day of the wedding shows up, there's not any shocking surprises about how the photographer might work.
That's a good trial run for how you mesh. Plus, I love getting the engagement photos. It's their personality, from what they're wearing to the backdrop, all of that.
Exactly. You get to kind of have free reign. There's no pressure, and it's pretty low key. Where a wedding is very chaotic, it's very time sensitive. You're technically on a schedule, and it goes so super quick. That's why pictures and spending the money on a photographer is super important, because a poor bride and groom, it goes so fast. When they get those pictures, there may be some things that they didn't even realize happened. And to have that is huge. Definitely.
Now, does anything come to mind as far as, one of your favorite weddings or couples, whether it's their engagement, and wedding, that you just enjoyed when you were done with the product, you were just like, oh, this is a keeper?
I would have to say one of my all-time favorite weddings was one of my very first weddings I shot, and it was one that I shot about 3 years ago. It was at a winery here locally at our Wood River Cellars, and the bride and groom just super low-key, laid back, and they had perfect weather. It was overcast, kind of threatening rain, but we weren't sure it was going to rain. We just went with it. The pictures were phenomenal. They were such a great couple. But the one thing, and the reason why I remember them most, is they had a little scavenger hunt tag team throughout the course of the wedding day. And her husband brought in, it was probably about 3 inches tall, it was a little gorilla. And between myself and my second shooter, they were playing a game all day to get that gorilla back and forth to each other without the other one seeing it. And so then they had to figure out how to get it back. And so there are so many, there's probably about 10 pictures in their wedding album of that gorilla showing up in random spots. It ended up walking down the aisle with her in her bouquet, and she had no idea. It ended up in her dress, ended up in his tux, just back and forth. And by the end of the night, it ended up on the top of the cake. So when they went to do the cake cutting, neither one of them had any idea how it got there. So just a little game back and forth, and they, by far, are still one of my favorite couples. One of their photos was actually one of the ones that I brought onto the Today Show because it's one of my all-time favorites. And it ended up raining, but a gorgeous rainbow came out and just started off the reception fantastically.
Oh my goodness, that sounds like magic. And that game, that is like the cutest thing I've ever heard of.
It was a ton of fun, and it was fun, like, sneaking around without them figuring out we were putting it there. And we have little snippets and pictures of, what they're doing in the background while one of us is planting the gorilla, and it was a lot of fun.
Oh my goodness, I love that. And what a nice break from the emotional, density that happens on a wedding day, to just, keep that, you know what? Let's take into consideration that this can be a fun day, too.
Absolutely. And they still have that gorilla.
That is really, really fun. That is really cute. Now, what other tips, on the day of a wedding, you're working primarily with the bride-to-be. what is it that you do for her? Kind of, I mean, I'm sure there's a little bit of counseling that happens, a little bit of, let me do, zip you up or whatever.
I've deemed not only the role of photographer, I think it's a lot easier, especially for a female photographer in this aspect, but it's come down to, in a way, I work very closely with the planners and all the other vendors too, just to make sure, if anyone needs help with anything, especially for the bride. I actually pack an emergency kit with me, so like if something gets spilled on her dress, if something needs sewn. I mean, I've actually done a bride's hair because her hair person didn't show up. I've sewn a bridesmaid's dress because they ripped out the seam because they ended up, like, the dress got altered too tight. I've kind of played backup buddy to the bride in case of emergency if there's not a wedding planner there. But just kind of, keeping the calm if something happens. Hey, you know what? It's no big deal. We'll get it taken care of. Don't you even worry. Just relax and enjoy your day. And they always appreciate it because it's something that they don't worry about because they know it's going to get taken care of. So aside from 90% photographer, there's that 10% of the other little side things that are unexpected to come up on the course of a wedding day.
Oh yeah, and you've done it so many times. That would be invaluable if I was sitting there in my wedding dress, my hair not done.
Yeah,
no problem.
The poor bride for that one too. I asked her, I said, well, I can take pictures of you guys getting ready or I can do your hair. And she says, drop the camera, do my hair.
I'm sorry. Hair takes precedent right now. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, so I imagine that if people want to get a hold of you, you're probably getting booked up for 2013. So
yes.
Is it for 2014 that people should be looking to reach out to you now?
Yes, actually, I am starting to book up for 2014. I do still have some 2013 dates available, but I've noticed the trend for wedding planning right now. 2014 is becoming popular and booking up.
So, well, I guess first I want to go back to, you are an international wedding and engagement photographer, so you will travel if...
I will.
Okay. And if people need you, whether local to Idaho or to anywhere all over the world, how is the best way to get in touch with you?
They can actually get a hold of me by phone at 208-319-6634, or they can actually shoot me an email directly at francis@photographyby2.com. And I know the links and everything to contact me will also be available with this. But they can also go to my website, photographyby2.com, and just send me a contact form as well.
And I encourage everyone to go to the website. It's super cute. There's tons of galleries and things to check out. And you have a lot of really good information about, you have a blog, you also have, pricing, investment is what you say. But the galleries, definitely check out the galleries. And with that, we'll just wrap this show. Thank you so much, Francis, for joining us today. I thought your insights, your stories, wonderful. So thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
And to our audience, thank you for listening. Now get out there and build something beautiful. Until next time, take care.